No news today, so let's get straight into the data. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So fear and greed held steady at a 40. You can see we've been here for a couple of days now. We'll see how this continues to play. It didn't go higher even though markets were going higher. You can see greed in momentum, extreme fear in strength. So signals definitely mixed, breadth still hovering in regular fear. Put call ratio still flat and neutral. Same here with volatility, still sitting in neutral. And then you can see mixed here in bonds as well, extreme fear and safe haven demand, but junk bonds still in extreme greed. So markets not really sure of their next direction. Moving over to seasonality, you can see this is a statistically bearish period. We're still looking for a little bit of bullishness through this week based on my analysis, but I do think that this weakness is going to come in the middle of the month. So at the end of this week, that is the 10th, and then by the 13th, we should be seeing some seasonal weakness coming through, and that could play out for the rest of this month. Moving over to the earnings calendar, we got Simon Property coming in above estimates, Realty Income missing on the bottom line, but beating on the top, and then Tyson Foods missing on the top line, but beating on the bottom. Also not listed here was Palantir. They put out weak guidance and their stock is down as well. Looking at tomorrow, we got Disney in the morning. We'll see how that one plays, as well as Duke Energy, EA Games for you game players out there. And then for Wednesday, you have Uber, as well as Trade Desk. And that's pretty much it for those days. And that's pretty much it for earnings over the next few days. Moving over to the economic calendar, there was nothing on for today. Looking at tomorrow, 3-year note auction, consumer credit, pretty much nothing for the next few days. And looking at Wednesday, you can see 10-year note auction, only thing there that's relevant. Moving over to Max Payne, we got all the way up to 516. You can see a call wall here at 515. Top of the puts is right around 516. So we're already about where we're going to top out for markets based on Max Payne. Keep that in the back of your mind. If we do kind of move back into the middle here, 509 might be a bit of resistance. 505 should be some support. We'll see how that plays. But right now, put call ratio quite low, which is definitely concerning. The put call ratio is that low. Typically that means markets will allow for a little bit more downside movement. So right now, Max Payne looks a little bit bearish to me. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the S&Ps here on the daily and the hourly chart, you can see several days of bullishness in a row. We had a bottom here on Wednesday last week. Double tested that bottom on Thursday, rally into the Friday, rally into the Monday, so we're continuing that trend. Structurally, nothing has changed. We are at a point of very interesting resistance. You can see we're in this kind of bear flag setup. We're at this longer term trend line as resistance. If it breaks here, we're probably going to 520. If it rejects from here, we're probably going all the way down to 508. So super critical zone, definitely paying close attention to it. We're not overbought yet on the daily chart, but we are supremely overbought here on the hourly, all the way up at an 81.88 at the end of the day. So critical zone, I am going to be watching this very, very closely. If we reject from here, definitely get out of those bullish positions because this could fall for several days, just like we saw here. We got a test, fell 2 days in a row, all the way down to that lowest level. And that was a pretty significant move, 510 all the way down to 500. So 2% move in just 2 days. And you could absolutely see something very similar to that off of this current level. Moving over to the Tasty charts, you can see that same resistance area here on the ATR stop, 517.92. We didn't quite get there, but that is going to be the resistance, and my guess is that we're going to wick that tomorrow, and then we'll see what happens. If it breaks this and closes, could push to that upper ATR, which is 527.09. You can see that resistance up there. Certainly possible that we get a move like that. But again, critical zone, definitely something to watch quite closely in tomorrow's session. And then looking at that 4-hour chart, we are definitely extended, upper ATR 513.79. Typically, when you're this extended, we're going to see some kind of pullback. Who knows what that's going to look like exactly. And then similarly here on the hourly, still very bullish, definitely extended, well above the upper ATRs. ATR support 514.15, and you can see that right here. If that changes, you're going to see some short-term bearishness. And like I said, this could pull back all the way down to that 500, 505 area. Moving over to the NASDAQ, similar thesis, 3 days in a row of bullishness. We're not quite at that upper resistance the same way that we are on the S&Ps. Maybe we need to adjust this trend line here and see if we have some kind of correlation. You could argue maybe it should be here. Marks a top, overthrew it here, marks a top. I think really we should just do a shadow on this, see how it plays. So you have the true tops up there. You could argue this is a point of resistance. We've seen resistance in this point a few times. And that would actually mark this top perfectly here on the hourly chart. Definitely interesting. Again, watching it very closely. The overall tops are generally up around that upper trend line though. So 444 is probably going to be your local top. Again, you could see just a little bit higher movement, like a wick high would make sense on the SPY as well. Overall, still bullish. Dip low, higher low setup, clear rally, looking for that upper trend line, waiting to see if we can get to these all-time highs again. And structurally, everything is still bullish. Super overbought on the hourly, got all the way up to an 81.24 on the RSI, and then looking at the daily chart, similar thesis, pretty much in the middle of the range, still looks bullish, has some room, momentum, still bullish. Moving over to the Tasty charts, you can see that ATR trailing stop on the daily. We touched it almost to the penny. So 440.53 right there at that zone. You can see we're right on top of it. Momentum just hitting bullish here for the first time in a while. So this could have some more room. You can see generally you do get a couple of days of bullishness. Could give you a topping pattern in this area. If it tops in this zone, that's still a lower high setup, and this is probably going to fall back down to that 413 area. So again, critical zone. If it breaks here, probably headed to the upper ATRs around 452 up in this zone. That would just barely eclipse these previous highs and give you about another 2 to 3% of upside potential there. But if it collapses from here, this is going to be pretty significant. Lower ATR would be your price target down around the 408, 409 area. Might find some support in that 413, but definitely would not look great if it broke from this level. And then again, 4 hour, definitely overbought. Momentum, still bullish, but generally you see some kind of pullbacks from those overbought conditions. And then looking at the hourly, again, overbought, still super bullish, upper ATR, 436.98. Momentum starting to fade here on the hourly chart. And we'll see how this plays. If it breaks that 8 EMA there, 439.30, then we could start to see some breaks down to these lower ATRs. And that lowest ATR band here is at 435.25. So about a 1% move lower. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, the Russell went straight to that next level, 204.62, bounced off that level just a smidgen, 204.51, it's down 1 penny after hours. Again, same thesis as everything else, pretty much looks bullish on the daily charts. Looking at it on the hourly, definitely overbought, definitely extended. You can see went up to that level, consolidated, acted as resistance. We'll see how it plays tomorrow. And then similarly here on the Dow, gapped up, rallied, went through the level, 387.77. We've been watching that one for a while. It's right at the highly traded zone. Next level would be 392.44. But again, it's also extended, so we'll see how it plays. Still looks like a clear double bottom. Looks like it has some more room to run, but it needs to break these levels. And then 392, like I said, is the next one. Moving over to stocks that moved here today, we got Supermicro up 6% and NVDA 3.77%. So semis catching a really strong bid. Supermicro looking close to that 21 EMA at 846.65. You also have this kind of downtrend line right in that zone. We'll see what happens. I have a level of resistance there at 856.79 right here at the bottom from Wednesday, March 20th. So we'll see how that plays. If it can break that, who knows where we're going to head. Could be going back to its previous highs up around 1200. And then looking here on NVIDIA, momentum RSI bullish, clear break through that next level at 909. Next level above that would be 960.84. You can see we're at some of these kind of consolidation highs right here from 18 March, as well as the high here from 1 April. So could have a little bit of resistance there, but my guess is that it's going to push to this previous high. And if it does, that should take markets with it. So it looks pretty bullish here. Everything looks pretty strong. I'm sure it's extended on the shorter time frames, but that doesn't seem to stop NVIDIA. You can see this massive run here from the 670s all the way up to the 968 area. So I would guess this can probably head a little bit higher from here. Then we'll see if we overthrow that previous high, and then we'll have to see where we can go from there in some price discovery. Moving over to the Mag 7, again, looks super bullish. So we're through the highly traded zone. We came up a little bit short of that on Friday, pushed right through it, no issues, 2.4% to the upside. Next level of resistance is going to be that 367.10. Might overthrow it to this trend line. That would give you 369.58, and that would be right at these wick highs from 26 March. So we'll see what happens there. Might get 1 or 2 more days of bullishness based on the daily chart. But again, super overbought on the hourly. We've had 4 days in a row of straight bullishness. Super overbought, hit an 82.5. Definitely a strong move there. 4-hour chart, definitely overbought here as well, 73.26. So definitely some potential for resistance in this zone. You can also see a first step down on momentum on the 4-hour chart. Might see a little bit of a pullback based on that. Something to consider, but overall you would still expect those pullbacks to be bought up based on that daily chart price action. Moving over to Apple and Tesla. Apple gave back just a little bit of its gains, 0.91 to the downside. It did get through that level though, which is a little concerning. 182.37, gapped through that and fell. Hit the 200, hit the 144, bounced off that level. Now we're kind of in a purgatory there. Want to see it get back above 182.37 if I would be bullish here. Otherwise, if I'm bearish, I want to see it break those two dynamic supports there at the 144 and the 200 and move down to that 179.69 area. Overall, everything is still technically bullish, momentum bullish, RSI bullish. We're above all the EMAs and SMAs. And then looking at Tesla, actually got a bullish move here. We kind of expected that, 1.97. We talked about support at this trend line, gapped higher and rallied. You would expect this to continue here. 188.50 is the current price target. If that breaks, 197.75. Momentum, kind of weird. It is fading, but I would expect it to push higher. And then RSI also has some room to go before it hits overbought conditions. So kind of similar actually, not above resistance, but not at support either. Moving over to Microsoft and Amazon, both of these had a very strong day, 1.69, 1.34. Amazon basically at all-time highs. Did find a little bit of resistance there at 188.61. Technically closed above it, but it's down a little bit after hours. And then similarly here on Microsoft, critical level 413.36. It is above it, so at this point you would expect that to hold and then push to the next one, 429.88. Momentum just crossing into bullish, so this should have some room here. You can see this wasn't the same setup. You had a low with a lower low, and then we did get back to the midpoint here. Want to see this break and head back to these previous highs. Otherwise, Amazon, massive breakdown, hit that 167 area, found massive support from there, and now we're back at all-time highs. If that breaks, trend resistance would be 192.26. Overall, though, both of these look pretty bullish going into tomorrow's session. And lastly, here for the individual stocks, we have Meta and Netflix. Both of these rocketing higher, 3.04% on both of them, actually. That's weird, to the exact decimal. Momentum, bullish, RSI on both of them, and then RSI breaking above the SMA, looking bullish. These both still have some overhead resistance, so Meta looking at VWAP there for 468.58. Also have some volume in here from this previous consolidation, but momentum says we should push through that next level of resistance, 489.67. And then similarly here on Netflix, you have the 55 EMA, and this was a strong push. So we pushed through VWAP, pushed through the 21, 55 EMA sitting there at 600.41, and then you can see volume profile shouldn't find resistance until these previous lows here. That's going to be a zone where you could find it, and then 614 is my level. So again, both of these should have a little bit more upside tomorrow. Getting into sectors here, staples up 0.05, basically flat at this consolidation high. We've been talking about it for a while. Want to see this push to 77.5, and it does look like it can do it, but it really is struggling in this 75.90 to 76.20 area. And then looking at discretionary, strong day here, 1.07, still needs to get above 180.10. So we tested it here on Monday, and now we're getting close to testing it again on Monday the 6th. That previous Monday was the 29th, so last Monday. And then if it breaks above that, then you have room up to 185, and you can see we've done it before, tested it, rallied right to that next one. Similarly here, dipped low, held that level, pushed straight to the next one, but I wouldn't be bullish until we get above 180.10 here on discretionaries. Moving over to industrials and financials, both of these popping here today as well, 1.01 and 1.28%. So it looks like industrials is going to push to this upper trend line at 125. That's right in the middle of this previous consolidation. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish, so it does look strong. That would give you about another 1% move here on industrials. And then look at financials, absolutely moving higher on the day, gapping through the 40.77 level and rallying here. We're almost at this previous high off of this bottom, pulled back slightly, higher low setup. You would expect this to push to a higher high, and that would put your price target around that 41.65 level. Looks pretty clear that it's going to be headed in that direction. And if that level breaks, then you're right back here at 42.22. Seems like it could get there as well based on these RSI levels. Definitely has a move to that 41.65 in it, in my opinion. Moving over to breadth absolutely breaking out here on the 20-day. We said it got above that 51.75 level on the Friday session, and then it pushed absolutely through all of these EMAs and SMAs. So next stop here would be that 86.50 area. You can see once we get into that zone, it can chop there for a while, but that's typically the top of markets. So we'll see how that plays, how long we're going to hang out there. And then looking at the 50-day, very strong candle. Back above the 21, we haven't been above that in a while. Next resistance, 52.80. But you can see a move higher, higher low setup, Looks like we're pushing to that 62.25 at least. And then we'll see what happens at those longer term EMAs and SMAs. Moving over to the put call ratio, I wanted to highlight this massive spike that we had here today on the put call ratio. Definitely interesting to see puts spiking on a day where markets were at their most recent highs. Not at all-time highs, but not that far off of them. And we're seeing a big spike on the put side. Typically, that's what you see at the bottom of moves, but now we're seeing it on the inverse. You can see that kind of peak that we had in markets. We had a big spike down into the call side around that 16 April. We talked about it then. Now we're seeing kind of the inverse, but it's on a rally, which is unusual. Something to watch there. Not sure exactly what that means, but it's definitely unusual options movement. Moving over to the dollar is hanging in there. Ended up positive on the day, just barely 0.01. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. You can see we tested that support and then held that level. This is still a downtrend for sure. But really, I wanted to see this break down to that 104 again and then kind of hold and close in that zone, start to see this kind of roll over a little bit more. We were watching this as a bull flag, and then we wicked a low after the failed breakout. Now we're not really sure exactly what this looks like. To me, it still looks bearish, but it seems to be holding up a little bit better. You could argue maybe low, higher low setup. And if this starts to break back to these previous highs, that could be a little bit bearish for equity. So watching the dollar currently at support. And like I said, I think you can make an argument for some slight short-term bullishness. Moving over to yields, this is what I really think is driving markets here. So we have yields cratering on the day. That's 3 days in a row of bearishness from Wednesday to Friday of last week. And then we caught a little bit of a bid here on the Monday session on the 2-year. It's still hanging out right in that same area though, 4.8. Then you can actually see the 10-year gapping lower, down another 0.5%. To me, this looks like we're headed lower. 55 EMA sitting down there at 4.37, 4.38. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. So yields still look quite bearish with the 10-year continuing that downtrend and actually closing below this previous wick here from Friday the 19th. This should be headed back into that 4.35 area. And that should give equities a little bit more room to the upside in my opinion. Moving over to JNK and TLT on the bond side, you can see JNK slight bullishness, but really not confirming the same move that we saw across equities here today. Based on what we saw, I would have wanted to see this push to 94.82. That's a little bit concerning. We'll see how that plays over the next day. If we get a continuation, no issues at all. But if this starts to fade while equities are either holding or potentially even going higher, that's definitely going to be concerning. And then you got TLT moving higher. Definitely looks fine there to confirm the rally. Up 0.39. Let's go ahead and extend out that trend line. That would give you some resistance around that 91 area. That's probably your first price target. And then above that, you got the 55 EMA right in that 92 area. So pretty stacked, 91, then 92. Definitely looks bullish coming off a pretty solid base. Moving over to volatility, you can see move index continues to crater here. VIX basically unchanged, actually says 0.00. So again, that's definitely unchanged. So a little bit weird. You can see right in this consolidation, would have liked to see this push to that 1275 area. Probably still will, but it is holding just slightly above that previous consolidation. Nothing major, still looks a little bit bearish in my opinion. Moving over to my accounts, I profited like I should have, about 660 on the day. Everything worked out fine. Continued to roll up puts throughout the day. So for tomorrow, 204 put. Again, watching that one closely. IWM is at resistance. Want to see it break higher. If it does, I might actually buy a covered call there and see if we can get a little bit more out of it. If it breaks down, I'll probably take off this put and be patient. And then looking at the Qs, same thesis as the Friday session. I have an at the money put for 440. I have a medium dated call here, 442.50 for $1.62. So giving me a little bit of protection. Again, we're at resistance. We're at those ATRs. If it breaks higher, no issues at all. Can absolutely play this for a little bit more upside. And I am in a bullish position right here, but watching it closely, critical zone, like I mentioned. And then I did roll this other call out quite a bit as well, 435 now for $6. So that puts my max profit for that Friday position at 441. So again, just giving me a little bit more room, a little bit more potential for profit on that covered call position. Let me know down in the comments section what you think of the charts. Interesting to see the SPY and the NASDAQ at points of resistance and overbought conditions, but a lot of the individual stock charts seem to show room for more upside. Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.